Today we're talking with trainer extraordinaire, one of the best trainers in the game for a long time, and also, let's not forget, a vicious hell of a boxer himself in his day. We're going to be talking with the one, the only, Robert Garcia, everybody. Let's get right into it. Hey,
What's up, guys?
What's up, Mr. Garcia?
What's up, champ? How you doing?
Hey, todo bien, todo bien. ¿Tú?
Bueno, that's good.
¿Dónde ahorita?
What was that?
¿Dónde está ahorita?
In my house, in casa.
En la casa.
I just gonna go into my office to charge my phone because it was like I know I need to be charging it. So.
Thanks for talking to us, man. We appreciate it.
Oh, no problem at all.
I was just telling Jeremy, everybody knows you're a great trainer, but you could fight, man. You were a hell of a fighter.
You know what? I think I'm a better trainer than I was a fighter because I don't know how other former fighters feel, but I truly believe I should have never been a fighter. I don't know. For me
What?
personally, I don't know. I think it was more of I was forced into the sport by my dad, who loved the sport growing up. Since I was like 3 or 4 years old, my dad already had me in boxing, already had me wearing boxing gloves, and yeah, I kind of came to a point where I kind of hated the sport instead
Wow.
of loving it. Throughout my school years, junior high school, especially, prom, high school activities, I wasn't allowed to do none of that because of boxing. So came to a point where I actually hated the sport.
Wow.
So now as a trainer, I enjoy it. I don't have to make weight. I don't have to go to sleep early. If I go to the fights, if I travel to some fights, I get to visit the cities, stay up late if I want to, drink a beer if I want to. You know what I mean? Just different.
I want people watching who forget. You were at one point, you were 32-0, right? World champion, and the fight you had against Diego Corrales. I know you ended up losing, but that was one of the most exciting fights. I encourage anybody to watch that fight, Robert Garcia versus Diego Corrales. It was a fucking banger.
You know what? Going back at those memories, I at first, losing my title obviously hurt. It was something that nobody really likes, and I didn't like. I hated it, but now I feel so much better, and knowing that I lost to somebody like Chico Corrales. He came to become a legend, with the fights he had against Castillo and that warrior, especially the first fight to be one of the best fights in boxing history. And, to say that I shared the ring with him and he took my title, I actually feel proud when I talk about that, knowing that I fought Chico Corrales. A lot of the young boxing fans might not even know who Chico Corrales is, but, real boxing fans, they know he became a superstar, man. People loved him. People love to watch him fight.
I mean, I would say, I know you guys were the same weight, but I can't imagine that really his weight. I mean, he looked so much bigger, and you were still going toe to toe with him.
Yeah, he was very difficult because of his height, and plus, he also had power, man. So that the height plus the power, man, that was really something difficult to be able to, I was able to hang in there the first 5-6 rounds, and I think I was doing really good. But once he started connecting me and broke me down and stopped me in the 7th round, which is, like I told you, I actually feel proud when I say, what, I lost to Chico Corrales. He's one that became, that's going to be remembered for many years. Many people consider his fight against Castillo the best, one of the best, if not the best.
Me too.
ever. So I feel this. That I think that's, to me, that's the best fight of all times. And knowing that I shared the ring with him, something that makes me feel proud.
It's funny you say that because I saw that. I agree. I think that's the greatest fight I've ever seen. It had everything. But your fight with Corrales reminded me a lot of that one. You know what I mean? You guys were really going at it, up, down, up, down. So let me back it up a little bit. What was your amateur career like? How many fights did you have?
You know what? I had, I would say, I don't remember the exact number, but I had somewhere around 60 amateur fights. But I started boxing since, like I said, my dad had me in boxing since I was 3 years old. Back when in 1980 is when I had my first amateur fight, where I was 5 years old. And at that time, the USA Boxing still didn't require that. Right now you have to have that license, the book where they register every one of your fights. So then we didn't need it. We just showed up to any amateur show, signed up. My dad would sign me up, my weight, my age, and if there was a kid around the same age and same weight, they would match us up. So I was 5 years old when I had my first amateur fight.
Wow. I remember those. I remember that weight, the coaches talk, and boom.
Exactly. I remember because I know Mosley's a few years older than me, and I remember seeing Mosley in all those amateur shows like that too. He was one of them, and like I'm telling you, now you have to be 8 to start your amateur career. Back then, we just showed up, put our names down, our weight, and that's it. If there's somebody your size, your weight, then there's a fight, and that's the way we used to do it. I had 2 amateur fights like that. One when I was 5, and the other one when I was 7. Then after that, I turned 8. But so all those years, I turned pro at 17. So all those years, I didn't have that many amateur fights compared to kids right now who by the time they're 13, they already have 150 or 200 fights. I turned pro at 17, so 60 fights, 60 plus, somewhere around there, is not a lot compared to what's going on right now.
Sure. Didn't you, as an amateur, you fought De La Hoya, right?
I never fought De La Hoya. You know what? De La Hoya fought somebody named Robert Garcia, so a lot of people think it was me. But De La Hoya is 2 years older than me, so in USA Boxing, they would have never allowed it. You can't be more than 2 years apart from each other. So I never fought him. We trained together in the U.S. Training facilities in Colorado for some national tournaments and some international tournaments. And he was always bigger and heavier than me, so we sparred a lot, but never fought.
I didn't know, so Jeremy and I, we met, we were both in camp, and I was, and my second amateur fight, I was 15, and the guy I fought was 26. So how'd they allow that?
You know what? Before, I don't know if it was 15 or you were probably closer to 16, because before it was 16. Once you hit 16, back before it was 16 open. After 16, you were able to fight. That's why I don't know if you know. I don't know what year it was, but it was in the mid 90s. Fernando Vargas won the U.S. national championships at 16. And he is until now the youngest ever, because now the rules have changed. Now I believe you have to be 18. There you go. Jeremy remembers that, I'm pretty sure.
I won it at 16 too.
It's you know what I mean? So it's now they don't even allow it. Now 15 fights, 16-year-olds, and then 17 against 18s. So now it's different. The rules have changed. But before that's why I'm pretty sure, because you were probably getting closer to 16 and you fought somebody that age, yes. But that has changed.
So
August.
Jeremy, you're cutting out.
Say it again.
You're cutting out, Jeremy. Maybe come a little closer to the phone.
What is that gonna do?
Your voice, it'll pick it up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you? But yeah, I fought U.S. tournament. We were in the tournament. USA in the 90, 91, 92. I was in the same tournament you were.
Right. No, I remember that. I was in the, actually, I I think we were in the same the U.S. national champions in 91 or 92. I remember that. And then in 92, I think I believe I don't know the Western Trials. I don't know if you were in the Western Trials, but I was.
I was open because I was on the U.S. team. So
Yes.
I walked right to the.
So you went right through it. Yeah, I had to compete in the Western trials to be able to make the trials. So it was a lot different than now. Now they go by points, and some kids make it to the Olympics without even having to compete because they have enough points to make it. It's just the weird situation now.
Wow. So your nickname at one point was Grandpa. Is that true when you were fighting?
Grandpa was my nickname since I was an amateur, and my dad. I don't remember, but my dad tells us the story that I was like 10 or 12 years old, and I was already competing and winning fights because I think I went undefeated for a few years without losing a fight. So my dad tells me that there was a few coaches in the LA area that every time we showed up to the fights, that they would say, "Oh man, look, here comes that little killer." So my dad didn't really like them calling me killer. So he told them, why do you guys call him killer? Oh, because he's badass. We like the way he fights. So my dad says, well, I don't really like that nickname. So if you're gonna respect them, maybe respect them like you would respect your grandpa. So then the parents themselves, they're the ones, the other coaches are the ones that start, oh, here comes grandpa. So that name stuck with me. And, until now, there's still some boxing people that go back to my amateur days that still call me grandpa. Now I am a grandpa. I have a 2-year-old grandson.
Beautiful. Good for you, man. Well, you became world champion. Had you not done that, what would you have done?
You know what? I think I would have probably been doing something else because like I told you guys, I came to a point where I didn't like the sport. I hated the sport too much. Too much politics. The training, obviously. The diets. Staying away from home. Training camps. It's just a difficult sport. So I'm pretty sure I would have had to find something else to do. I always enjoyed and since I was a kid, I always thought one day I would have been a police officer. Since I was a kid, that was one of my dreams, and maybe I would have tried for that. But I guess everything is meant to be. One day after I retired, a couple of years after I retired, my dad invited me to the gym and told me to come and help him out with some of the kids, and I did, and I fell in love with it again. As a coach now, not as a fighter. I fell in love with the sport. I enjoyed working with the little kids and traveling to tournaments. Like I said, not having to make weight, not having to be in bed early. I could go out and eat whatever I want. Drink a beer if I want to. I never drank before when I was fighting. So once I retired, I like to have a beer or two once in a while. But so stuff like that is what changed my idea of the sport. Now I enjoy it. I love it.
Was your dad? Did your dad pro or?
My dad never turned pro, but he tells us stories that when he was in Mexico, he used to fight, but as an amateur, and he used to fight. I believe there was a local church in his hometown where they used to do boxing amateur fights to raise money for the church. So he says that he had a few amateur fights, but it was all for a church in his hometown.
It's kind of like you, Jeremy. Jeremy's dad trained him, but Jeremy,
what?
Your dad never fought, right?
No.
But he trained you for the first what? How long?
10 years.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, that's the way my dad was. And then when I was born, because I was the firstborn here in the United States, all my older brothers and sisters, my older brother and sisters, they're all from Mexico. So when they came to the United States is when I was born. So I remember being 4 or 5 years old. My dad used to take us to the gyms in LA to go see. I remember seeing guys like Pepino Cuevas train, Roberto Duran. I remember Roberto Duran. So there was a few top names that my dad used to go into the gyms in LA, take us to see them train. One fight that I clearly remember that he took me to, and I remember because this is always something that I'm always going to remember, when the fight was almost going to be over and everybody was up cheering for the fight. My dad put me in his shoulders so I could see, because I believe I was 6 years old. That's Salvador Sanchez versus Wilfredo Gomez. My dad took me to. I remember my dad took me to that fight, and that's a memory I have. So my dad grew up loving the sport and teaching us the sport too, because he trained me, my brothers, and my four sisters. They all know how to. He trained all of us at home.
And so, in your training now, what do you transfer to your students?
You know what? One thing that my dad has always been very, very strict and very hard with his fighters when he was training is being disciplined. And it's one of the most important things, the discipline. A lot of things have changed. Before, when we had training camps, my dad would take us, me, Fernando Vargas, to training camp, like to Big Bear, for 2.5 months or 3 months before a fight, and we would focus on the fight. Back then we didn't even have phones, so we were gone. We were gone for 2.5 months to 3 months training camps, where we wouldn't even get a phone call from the family, the wife, the kids, nobody. Come the fight week, he was just very strict, to the point where it gets a little, you get a little lonely and a little sick, a little sick. It's a tough sport. Now things have changed. Boxing, has had a lot of change. A lot of fighters now bring the wives with them into training camps, or the week of the fight, they're hanging around with the family. A lot of things have changed, So those are things that I allow also. I know how it was to be away from your wife and kids for 2 months. So now, if one day one of my fighters brings in the kids or the wife to see them train, I'm okay with it. I don't have anything against it. Honestly, I think it was something that it's something that actually makes them feel better, because they have somebody that one of their loved ones near them and close to them while they're training. So it motivates them a little bit more.
Mm.
Makes sense.
Do you think it's harder to train your brother since you're family, or is it easier to train your brother's family?
Okay, what was that again? Can you repeat that?
Do you think it's harder to train your brother since you got family, or that makes it?
You know what? With Mikey, I think it was so much easier, because Mikey made things so easy for himself. Mikey, I want to say was, because I don't even know if he's going to want to fight again. He's been on and off with maybe yes, maybe he doesn't. It doesn't seem like he really wants it anymore. So, but Mikey was one of the fighters that was very smart in the ring. He was one of the guys that during training and even during the fights, we didn't really have to give him too many instructions. There was so many times where I would give him instructions, and he would even laugh and say, "You know what? I had already thought about that." So Mikey was very smart in the ring. He didn't really need that much instructions during training. He always trained hard. He was very dedicated. So it wasn't hard. It was actually probably easier than other fighters that I've had.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And what is the hardest fighter that you have now to train?
You know what, man? I've had situations where not that the fighters are hard, but when somebody in their family, sometimes an uncle or the dad or somebody that wants to get involved and wants to do things that might not be right or might not be wrong, and that kind of kind of gets involved with my system or the way I do it, and might cause a little bit of problems. But so far, honestly, I've been pretty lucky with all of my fighters. You know, they've all the time that they come to train with me, they listen, they believe in me, and that's the most important thing. You know, once that finishes, if a fighter doesn't feel comfortable and doesn't feel right training with me, then they're open to leave. You know, I've never had a contract with any of my fighters. You know, they're happy where they're at, and if the time comes where they feel like they need somebody else to train them, or they need to move to another gym, they could leave. You know, I don't have anybody under contract to the point where they're forced to be with me.
Wow.
So what does a day in the gym look like for you?
Well, you know what, right now, let's say right now, today, this week has been easy because I've had so many fights in the last 2 months where most of my fighters are finished and they're back home. We have this Saturday, I have Josito Lopez, but training camp is already over. He's actually already in Dallas. I leave tomorrow morning to Dallas, so I'll join him tomorrow morning. And then I have a few fighters fighting at the end of April and early May, but not that many. So until mid-May is probably when I'll get most of my fighters back in camp. So when camp starts, then we start, 10 in the morning to 4 p.m. We have different sessions. I give it each session 2 hours, and depending on the weight division, the smaller weight divisions, I start them at 10 in the morning. Then we go to 12, from 10 to 12, then 12 to 2, 2 to 4. Depending on the weight divisions, I put them all together, and they spar each other. They train together, and then in the evenings is when they do the conditioning coach. Either go run, they do the conditioning coach workouts. So it's for me, it's just the boxing. I have the conditioning coach that works for us, that does the conditioning, and he does it on his own with the fighters, right? Obviously we make sure it's being done, but yeah, they do it themselves with the conditioning coach.
What as a trainer, what would you say if there's one was your most gratifying?
You know what? I've had personally, I had great wins, and one of them I could say was Abner Mares beating Jesus Cuellar to become my 10th world champion. Because I could probably say it was more personal. I had Jesus Cuellar as my champion. I made him a champion. And then from just out of a sudden, one day, he just decided he didn't want to train with me. So he left me, which it happens in boxing. It's just the way it is. Like I told you guys earlier, my fighters, if they don't want to be with me, they could leave. But there was no reason, or at least he didn't even call me to tell me he was going to train somewhere else. So I just found out of a sudden. But then a few weeks later, I get a call from Abner Mares telling me that he wants me to train him. So I start training Abner Mares, and then PBC, Al Heyman, calls us and says, "Do you guys want to fight for the title against Jesus Cuellar?" So I said, "Sure, let's do it." So that was my first fight with Abner Mares, and we go and beat Jesus Cuellar for Abner to become champion of the world. So I went and beat a champion that I had made and took the title from him. So that was one of my most my personal wins. But I think the biggest win still now, it's probably been Maidana when he beat Broner. Nobody gave us a chance. The night before the fight, everybody's hanging around in San Antonio in the hotel lobby, a lot of reporters and boxing people. And I was there too. And everybody was talking about the fight. And not one single person gave me a chance. Everybody told me, you know what, there's no way Maidana could beat Broner. I even had a few bets with some reporters that I was going to win. And, nobody believed it. And then after the win, I think that made a big difference. That changed a lot in my career as a trainer. I think that started getting more attention, and brought me, bigger fights and all that. So I think that win is probably the biggest win that I've had.
I mean, I loved every second fight. I did give me that big one, but Okay, so on the what was probably the toughest loss trainer you had?
Man, there's been some tough ones. You know what? I'm probably gonna say Mikey versus Spence,
Mm,
and not because we knew it was a fight we had to win. No, no, no. Going into the fight, before the fight was made, we told Mikey, don't do it. It's just not a fight for you. Moving up two divisions is insane, especially against the best welterweight out there. You know, we always told him, me, my dad, my son, we always told Mikey, don't do it. But Mikey just kept saying he wanted it, so he did it. So I probably say that's the toughest loss because Mikey should, wasn't supposed to lose, soon. At lightweight or 135, 140, Mikey would be unbeatable. So that's why I'm saying it was the toughest, not because he didn't even take a beating or anything like that. He lost by decision and it was never heard or anything like that. But I think it's the toughest loss because that changed a lot. Mikey was considered pound for pound on everybody's books, maybe one of the top five
yeah.
before he fought Errol Spence. Then after Spence, a lot changed. Then, he went and fought Jesse Vargas, which was an okay win, but nothing big. Then he loses to Martin, so it changed. So his career changed. Me as a trainer, it's really a downfall to see to end up like that. So I would probably say that was the toughest loss for the reasons I just explained. Not because he took a beating or anything like that. It's just because, being pound for pound, one of the best, five, top three, and some people, and then losing like that, and then your career kind of going down the hill after that, that was a tough loss.
Yeah.
Mikey should have still been pound for pound one of the best in the world, dominating the lightweight division and dominating the super lightweight division. But him going to 147, I think was a mistake.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a huge task, and I could see that, but he was there. He wanted there to.
Exactly, and that's one thing that we don't take away from him because he dared to be great, and he's still a 4 division champion, 5-time champion of the world, so nothing to be ashamed of. He lost to pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world, but that did slow his career down. I think the loss but kind of affected him mentally. He does. He doesn't have the love for the sport anymore. When he was dominating at lightweight and super lightweight, he was unstoppable. There was nobody that could stop him. So there was a big change. But still 4 division champion, still 5-time champion of the world. It's something that very few can say they've done.
He's great.
Yeah, that's a great test. 4 division champion.
Exactly.
From the highest weight to the smallest weight, what were the jumps?
Well, he was champion at lightweight and he moved up to welterweight. So that was we're talking 12 pounds, and that's a big difference. I have one of my fighters that just became champion at 112, Jesse Rodriguez, who moved up from 108 to 115. But that's only 7 pounds. So it's not that big of a difference, but it's still 2 divisions, and he became champion. He beat Cuadras, and he beat him very convincingly. So he did, something that very few could say. But it's from lightweight to welterweight, you're talking 12 pounds. From junior flyweight to super flyweight, it's only 7 pounds. So there is, it's more than half the difference. So a lot of fighters have done it. Pacquiao has done it, but you got to be very special to be able to do stuff like that. It's not easy. But Mikey dared to do it. That's something that we also have to give him respect for trying. But it was just one of those difficult losses.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask you, was there any fighters that you wanted to train, or that you do want to train, but you haven't yet, specifically?
Well, I there's no fighter in particular, but look, I think I've had I enjoy working with all of my fighters. From I've had champions at 105, 108, 112, 115, 118, pretty much until like 160. But I've never had a like a super heavyweight champion. I I've trained heavyweights before. I actually have a really good heavyweight right now that's 3-0 with 3 knockouts. He fights for top rank, but a champion. Winning a title with a heavyweight is something that I still want to do one day. Hopefully with my heavyweight that I have, but he's only 3-0. His name is Antonio Mireles. He's a pretty good fighter.
Okay.
He's signed with top rank, but I think that would probably be the fighter or the title that I still want, a heavyweight champion. I don't know if that's ever gonna happen. Hopefully I do, because I do want to end my career as a trainer having a heavyweight champion of the world.
Wow. And do you have end sight when you stop? Or
Do I what?
do you have an end in sight in terms of when you want to stop training, walk away? Or...
No. You know what? I have my training camp here in Riverside. I started off in Oxnard and everything was great in Oxnard, but my parents moved to Riverside like 12 years ago, and came to a point where I was so involved with boxing that a few months would go by and I wouldn't visit my parents. I couldn't see them because on the weekends I'm always traveling, and during the week we're training. So I decided to move to Riverside 7 years ago. So now, my mom passed away a year ago, but I'm with my dad every day. My dad comes to the gym with me every day. We have breakfast together every day. So I think boxing is what has kept my dad going. The boxing gym, he's in the gym every day. He's not coaching anymore, but he's there watching, and he gets a lot of respect from all my fighters. Now my son is also my assistant coach, who is a great coach too. His name is Junior. So I think this is going to go on for forever. I love what I do. I enjoy it. I'm 47, so I think I still have at least another 20 years left in the sport, and that's my dad's 67 and he still goes to the gym. So I think that it's going to stay in the family. Plus, we have a great training camp. My gym is in a big property where my fighters live. They all live at the property. They all eat together. They sleep in the same house. They train together. So it's something that I'm pretty sure is going to continue for many more years.
Wow, that's great. It's like a dynasty. So this is something we a lot of people on our show. Can you name your 3 greatest fighters of all time?
Yes, I can. You know what? My favorite fighter growing up, and that's because my dad used to sit me down to watch his fights all the time, and that's Sugar Ray Leonard. He's my favorite of all times. I think watching him and following his career, and even now as a person, he's still healthy. He's been very smart with business wise with his money and all that. So I admire all that, and Sugar Ray Leonard. But my second favorite fighter, and very few people even mention him, but I love the way he fight, the way he used to fight. That's Orlando Canizales from Texas.
He's actually watching right now. He's watching us right now.
Man, that guy is unbelievable, man. His footwork, if you guys go back to one of my fights against John Molina, I believe it was the 4th round. I could be wrong, but 4th or 7th round, I did things that I learned from Orlando Canizales, where I would pivot and throw my left hook, pivot to the other hand and throw my right hook, just little things like that, I just, I loved Orlando Canizales. He's still, one of my favorites, like I said, second to Michael Nunn. And another one, I think it's Salvador Sanchez, who I think was going to be if he wouldn't have passed, I think he would have been the best Mexican ever. Obviously, a lot of people might disagree with me because Chavez is a legend, and Chavez is everybody's favorite fighter in Mexico. But I think Salvador Sanchez, I think, would have been much better if he wouldn't have passed. Salvador Sanchez at 23, he had already beat so many great fighters going 15 rounds. I loved his technique, and those are my three. I don't want to leave my I don't even know if I could think of his name, but he passed away in the 80s. I also used to love the way he fights. He's from Mexicali, but man, I can't even can think of his name. But if I remember, I'll let you guys know. He used to also have really good footwork. Wasn't very famous. He was a champion, but never very, very famous. And I always love to mention him because he's one that people have forgotten. And if people go watch his fights, he was great. But man, I just can't think of his name right now.
Oh, I'm trying to can't think of it.
Gilberto Roman. His name was Gilberto Roman. Yeah, his footwork was unbelievable. I love fighters with good footwork, and obviously Leonard was one of them. Canizales, great footwork. Salvador Sanchez was just really good with he was very strong, with his power and everything. So that also has. You have to have good footwork to be able to hit that hard too, and be that strong and be able to go 15 rounds without even opening your mouth. And that's what Salvador Sanchez used to do.
Yeah, big shout out to Orlando watching us right now. I'd say that Manny Pacquiao took that Orlando book to do it, right? With the footwork.
Exactly. No, I'm telling you, those are things that I practiced when I was fighting, and it's difficult for every fighter to do it. Also, there's fighters that have it and fighters that don't have it. Right now, my young champion that I told you, Jesse Rodriguez, he does a lot of similar footwork. But he's just a natural also. But I love to bring up Canizales to him just so he keep it in mind that there was somebody that great, and also from Texas. Jesse Rodriguez is from San Antonio, and he has great footwork too. And I just bring it up, because he's a natural, but just so he can know that there's been fighters with great footwork, and Canizales is my favorite.
Yeah.
So here's a question: you think better fighters come from? I mean, we're just talking about Mexican fighters, Mexican American fighters, Mexican fighters. Which ones are bred strong?
You know what? I think. Mexican-born fighters are hungrier. I just feel you see those when Mexico has one great champion, you could see the hunger in them. Like I told you, go back to Salvador Sanchez, go back to Pipino Cuevas. I think they were just great, hungry fighters. Morales, Barrera. We've had a lot of champions here, Mexican Americans, that have been great. Also, Oscar de la Hoya, we can't dispute that. Oscar was great. For many years, he was pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world. But I just feel that Mexicans are just raised different. They're raised different. They don't come from rich families. Most of them probably came from very, very poor families, so their hunger brings them to be great and train hard and dedicate themselves. In Mexican Americans, we see a lot, and it happens a lot where promoters start paying them very well, giving them money every month, so their mentalities, their dedication changes. It's happened to many fighters that I've known here in the LA area, where they start getting a lot of money and they don't go nowhere. Why? Because they're not hungry anymore. They don't train as hard.
So who do you think could put together a stronger team? A Russian team or a Mexican?
Man, it's tough. Those Russians, and we say Russians to all of them, and we say they're all Russians, but they could be Ukraine, Lithuania, whatever. But we say Russians. You know what? Those guys, I think those guys are raised to be fighters since they're kids. I think since they're kids, they already have them in the gym. They're already training to become to become fighters one day. So that's the way they're raised. I don't know what kind of vitamins or what kind of things they take just to build themselves to one day be unbeatable and be so strong, because they're all so strong. I've worked with a few, and they're strong, man. Those guys are strong. They're stronger than Mexicans, but I think Mexicans probably have a better technique. So I would probably say Mexicans could probably win the fights because of their technique and their skills. The Russians are much stronger, and if they land, obviously they'll hurt their opponents. But I still pick the Mexicans.
What about in the smaller, the 25s and 19s, the 12s, the 6 pounders? Who creates better fighters, Mexicans or Asians?
Huh.
I probably still say Mexicans. You know why? I think you go on the list right now, and if you go to the list of all the from 118 to 105, you know what? I might be wrong. I was gonna say I'm pretty sure there's more Mexican champions than Asians, but I might be wrong, man. In the smaller weight divisions, Japan has some great champ. Actually, a 112 pounder that's insane right now. He's unbeatable at 112, and Japan has him. The Philippines also has some great champions. So I might be wrong, man. I might be wrong, but me being Mexican, I gotta go with the Mexicans.
Well, right now, who are your top 3 pound for pound right now?
Pound for pound, top 3, I have to say Canelo's number 1. There's no question. I think everybody in boxing should have Canelo as number 1. I really like, I would say Crawford and Spence. Between those two, it could be either way. 2 or 3 or vice versa, whichever one, because they are both very, very, very good fighters. And and me personally, I like the way both of them fight. I pick Crawford over Spence. I think Crawford number 2 and Spence number 3, but those could be my top 3 because I'm a really fan. I'm a fan of them. They fight very well, and I like their styles.
So if they fought each other, you would pick Crawford?
I think Crawford. I pick Crawford. Crawford. Well,
there's better fighter.
There's 2 reasons. I think there was a big difference when Spence got into the car accident. I think that has a lot to do. And now his eye surgery. He has an eye problem. So before the eye surgery, if you don't have a problem, if you've never had a problem, you fight without fear, with no problem. You just go out there and you're gonna handle business. And that was Spence. But since that surgery, there has to be that question in the back of his head is, what if I get hit again? What if it happens again? So he has to be a little more careful. And I think we'll see this Saturday when he fights Ugas, see if he fights a little more careful, if he fights a little more cautious, we'll see the difference. If he goes out there and doesn't care and just goes out there and takes care of business, then good for him, because he is a great champion. But those are probably the reasons I would probably pick Crawford over Spence.
Do you give Ugas a shot at all?
You know what? Everybody always has a chance. You land a punch or you're, everybody has a chance. But I do believe that Spence wins without a problem. I think he wins by decision, but I think he wins clearly a unanimous decision.
Wow.
Okay. And I'm a huge fan of Tyson Fury. I think he's one of the most talented heavyweights I've seen in a long time. What do you agree?
I do agree. You know what? I do see that there is some times where he throws his punch, especially the right hand, a little wide, but he's that big that he could do it. He gets away with it. He's going to be a lot bigger than most of his opponents, and he throws those punches a little wide, and I think down the, if somebody catches him down the middle when he's opening up his guard a little bit wide, they could catch him. And even what's his name, dropped him with a straight right hand, caught him coming in. So he does get, he has been down, he has been hurt. So somebody, I don't know if there is that somebody, because he's so much bigger than most of them, but he could be caught. He has before, but he is great. He gets up and he finishes his job. That says a lot about a fighter. He's a true warrior, and he is, we can say the best heavyweight ever, because we have Muhammad Ali. And
Right.
we have guys like Tyson or stuff like that, in a lot of people's eyes, those guys will always be the best. And, we can't mention anybody else. But Tyson Fury is up there with them. He would have competed great against all those guys and maybe even beat those guys.
Yeah, I mean,
here's a question. Do you think now they should separate the heavyweight division?
Well, I believe the WBC wants to do something, or I don't know if they already did, but what for? I think after 201 plus, everybody's big and everybody's strong, and they could all take punches, they could all hit hard. So I don't think it's necessary. But there is those fighters that are 260 fighting a guy that's 201, and it could be a 60-pound difference, 70-pound difference, and it is going to show in the fight. But if you're a heavyweight fighting at 201, 205, you might as well get down to cruiserweight and fight at cruiserweight, because they're going to be too big for you.
Well, Jerry, we could ask you. You fought at about 210. When you got in there with somebody who was 260.
Bro, I can't hear you, man.
I said you fought at about 210, right?
Yeah.
When you got in there with somebody who weighed about 260, was there a huge difference?
Huge difference. Like when you get a guy who fights at 39, fights at 45, 42, can't make that fight. That fight will never happen. 24 pounds. So I think the heavyweight division should be split in two. People are getting too effing big right now. People freaking
it's true.
The average heavyweight fighter right now, 6'6", 250 pounds plus. How can a guy 210 fight that 6 foot 6'1", the other guy 6'6", 260, 270, 280, 290? It's just, wasn't that Tyson Fury? Foot 10, 290 something pounds, whatever, 80, whatever. That's just too big. It's way too big. If a 12 pounder fought a, people would have a fit. Well, he's too big. True?
And you know what? You're right, because right now, if you come into the weigh-ins and the fight's scheduled to be, 126, let's just put a number out there, 126, and the guy comes in at 129, the commission doesn't even allow them to go lose weight. They have to agree somehow to the fight, because it's already too much, too much weight to lose. So they wouldn't even allow them to lose 3 or 4 pounds, because it's too much to lose. So, talking 30, 40, 50-pound difference, it is a big difference. I think it is the right thing to do. But my opinion is, if you're weighing 210, well, might as well get down to 200 and fight at cruiserweight, because they are going to be too big for you. Those guys, somebody coming in at 270, 260, 270, it's a big disadvantage.
I do believe they should split. Like, there should be a cruiserweight, there should be a heavyweight, and then there should be a super
heavyweight.
Right, which should be like
225, 230, whatever. 230, whatever.
So, Robert, right? One of the divisions in boxing is like the 135-pound class. Which fighter do you like the most out of all those guys? Tank David or all those guys?
At 135 around there, I enjoy watching, and I like to watch Lomachenko. And again, his footwork, I enjoy his footwork. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch. I think he's got really nice footwork. So Lomachenko is probably my favorite one. I also like Shakur, who's got a big fight coming up. Shakur Stevenson fights really well. Also uses his reach and footwork very well. But I probably say in the whole group at between 30 and 35, 40, I probably say Lomachenko is my favorite.
Okay. He's up there. He's getting older, but still seems like he's at the top of the game.
Exactly. No, he's a great fighter, great talent. I think he's one of the talents that we don't see that often, and I enjoy watching him because we don't see that often. So I do enjoy his fights.
What's your opinion on the fight now? Do you think it's good for the sport, or do you think it's kind of corny?
The what?
The guys YouTube, like Jake Paul, the guy making a splash that came from back.
You know what? If he's headlining pay-per-view events and getting paid millions of dollars, and he is fighting on real professional fights, everybody, one of the two brothers, I don't even know which one's which, but the one that has like 4 fights already as a professional, he fights former basketball players or former UFC players, and he knocks them out. The only difference from me building one of my young fighters. I have fighters that have also fight former MMA fighters or guys that probably have never even been in the ring, and we go out and blow them out in 1 round. The only difference is this guy's really, really famous, makes millions of dollars, and is selling pay-per-view. He's doing what everybody else does. Any manager, any promoter that signs a fighter is going to fight him with MMA fighters, with guys, that sometimes we call, I don't like to call any fighter that, but guys, taxi drivers, you know what I mean? Just, we're supposed to do that with young fighters, with guys turning pro, guys, their first 5, 6, 7, 10 fights are all going to be taken care of. So if this Paul guy, one of the two brothers, like I said, I don't know which one's which, but if he's doing that, the only difference is he's selling pay-per-views and he's filling up arenas and he's making millions of dollars. That's the only difference. He's doing exactly what everybody else does at the beginning of their career. So good for him, man. Good for him. I just, maybe the exhibitions going on, and maybe people that believe they're real fights, like maybe Tyson did against Roy Jones, or Mayweather is pretty much going to do something next month. If you're going to sell it to the world like a fight, then you're fooling the people. Sell it like a show, like an exhibition. Make sure people know it's a show, and if people pay for it, if people show up to the fight, then that's their choice. But selling exhibitions to make them believe that they're real fights, then that could be a problem. That might be hurting boxing. But Paul fighting real fights against MMA fighters, everybody else does. I have a few of my fighters that have fought MMA fighters, and they go out and knock them out in 1 or 2 rounds. The only difference is this guy's making a lot of money.
Yeah. It's everybody has their record, build themselves up, so why not?
Exactly. We all, everybody, I hear a lot of people saying, well, he needs to fight somebody better. He needs to fight somebody better. Well, I got guys that are 4-0, 5-0, and nobody wants them to fight anybody better because nobody knows them. And he'll fight somebody better maybe when he's 20-0, not 4-0. But with Paul, everybody wants him to fight somebody better because he's famous and he's selling pay-per-views and he's making millions of dollars. So that's why everybody's asking for him to fight somebody better. But he's doing exactly what everybody else does. Any trainer, any manager, any promoter is going to take care of the fighter until they're ready for those big fights.
Yeah, for sure. Was there any, as a trainer, was there anybody you looked up to?
There's there's always been a lot of trainers that I like to listen to and I like to study. Salas, he's in Vegas. I enjoy having conversations with him because he has a lot of knowledge. Emmanuel Stewart was one that I always enjoyed his work. He had great work with his fighters, great relationship with his fighters also. Every fighter loved him like a father. It was just one of those relationships, one of those trainers that always cared for his fighters. One that I also think was great and had great fighters, but in the last 10, 15 years, people haven't heard much about is Jesse Reed. I think Jesse Reed was a great trainer. He was actually Orlando Canizales' trainer. So, I like the work he did with him. But I think Jesse Reed is one that has been forgotten. But he was a great trainer. I don't know how many champions he had, but he had a lot of champions and taught his fighters very well.
Well, very true. He's a good friend. He's a really good trainer. His son is a good fighter and trainer as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, thank you for your time, Mr. Garcia.
We
It was
appreciate
great.
it.
Thank you. I can see you now.
Thanks for
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, let's do it
Thank you
again.
guys. Yeah, anytime, guys. Thank you guys. Anytime. Thank you guys.